And, like I said before last week, I like this group. I think the depth of this group, the versatility of this group, the size of the group, the experience, and I think that's probably the thing that jumps out the most, specifically in today's era, and our past success has been predicated upon experience and maturity, and our ability to add that to our group through the three guys that joined us through the portal, plus the guys that returned that have gotten better, taking jumps in their games. So, don't have a starting lineup for you yet. Still got a month to figure that out. But I like the way they compete, and every day that's probably one thing that's jumped out since June when they got here, how competitive this group is holistically. Um, and everybody's had good days, and everybody's had days where they haven't been so good. But how they compete, how they battle every day has helped us. I think it's raised the bar for who we are, and we got a ways to go yet. But I like the trajectory of this group and how connected they are. Jocko, who we got? Jesse?
Yes, hey Greg. How difficult was it to make sure you found the right guys in the portal to plug them into this culture? And from what you've seen of those three, how do you feel like each of them can be utilized?
Yeah, I think I don't think I would call it difficult. I think we had to be very specific and very intentional in the positions that we had to address. And then obviously, when you know exactly what you wanted to add in terms of a position, then finding the fit, and obviously the person behind the fit, how they fit to the culture. Those three have been terrific. I can't, right from the beginning, they've jumped in, and there's been learning curves for all three of them at times. Um, but I'm happy with where they're at. I think they all can add something to us, and they all bring something a little bit different. Obviously, Hunter brings us some physicality in the um, point guard position. Amos brings us a stretch four that I think has a little more ability to play on the wing than what I would have given him credit for through the evaluation. And John Tanje is just, he brings not only a grown man's body, but a grown man's brain and maturity, and that jumps out. Obviously, his size and his physicality on the wing is pretty evident, but he has seen a lot, in year six of college basketball. So I think they all are good fits, and I think the staff did a really good job of evaluating and being very intentional. I think that's one thing you have to do in today's era. You have to be really, really specific and really, really intentional on who you're going after, and that is not just throwing something against the wall and hope they fit. There was a direct intentionality with those three guys, specifically at those three positions.
Steve?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what impact the addition of the West Coast schools is going to have on the Big Ten. And also, I know it's a really tiny sample size, but so far in football, the teams that have gone to time zones have really struggled with those road games. If you figured out how you're going to handle that trip to LA, playing USC, UCLA, that 4-day trip, how you try to get your team as ready as possible for both games.
Yeah, I think it's great for the league. Obviously, you're turning on, weekend football, and you're looking at a matchup, and it's a matchup typically you'd only see in a bowl game. It was kind of odd watching USC and obviously us a week ago, but USC Minnesota, Michigan Washington. So I think it's obviously really good for the league. It obviously gives us, not that we didn't have nationwide exposure before, but now we really are coast to coast. I think basketball's different, that we are accustomed to playing across time zones. We do more home and homes than what football typically does. We play multiple times a week. So I think our ability to adjust, obviously the trip to Arizona was kind of a litmus test for us last year in terms of just the timing, the time zone, and that gave us I think, a better picture of how far in advance you should leave. But I don't know if it's as much of an adjustment for basketball, just because it's been part of our DNA. We travel probably more and multiple times a week, and obviously you're going to different coasts to play, in tournaments, MTEs, postseason tournaments, those type of things, where maybe not, bowl football goes to a bowl game, 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance. So there's a lot more in that regard. There's a lot more modification time and adjustment time where we're more accustomed to the shift in time. Not that we're going to go the day before. We're adjusting some things, but I think we're a little more. It's more commonplace in basketball.
Michael?
With the addition of Xavier and Nolan's development, you have more options at the forward spot that constructs the defense. I guess what element does that add to the team to be able to put that type of shooting on the floor at all times?
Yeah, I think shooting is a premium in today's game, regardless of position. It's really, you have to have 4, if not 5, on the floor that can shoot it. And if you have less than that, it makes offense really hard, and you're a lot easier to defend. So I think Nolan's development has been noticeable. I think Xavier is still adjusting to the physicality of the step up, and we've talked about that with a few of our guys of how we have to continue to be more physical in certain positions, and embracing that. But I think anytime you can add shooting to your lineup, I mean that's a premium. That's today's game. You watch the NBA, you watch anything in Europe. It's you have to be able to put the ball in the basket pretty consistently from distance, and just it's a domino effect of what it allows you other things to do offensively. But if you have to play against a loaded lane and a loaded floor, it just, like I said, it makes life a lot more difficult.
Nick?
Hey, Greg. Downstairs, John Tanje mentioned that, he's usually a little bit more introverted, but he's really tried to be a little more verbal, vocal with this team. How, if at all, have you guys kind of encouraged him to do so, and how is that beneficial for his development as well as just the team communication as a whole?
Yeah, I think I think there's been an adjustment period, and even though he's in year 6, it's a new place, it's a new team color, new locker room, new teammates, new coaches. So I noticed in the summer he was a lot more reserved. I thought towards late July, early August, he started to be more of who we thought he was going to be, not only as a player, but also just showing and voicing that experience. And it's been pretty evident here too in the early parts of this camp, in terms of how the maturity and the experiences. He's using it in a good way. Obviously, he's been pretty consistent, pretty dominant on the floor, but he's also, like I said, he's just got a grown man's approach to him. There's not a lot he hasn't seen, so that's helped, and that's one of the things we talked to him about in the recruiting process. Is we obviously need you to bring things to the floor individually, but we need you to help our younger guys too, because he has seen a lot and has had to play a lot of successful basketball in his time at Colorado State, and a little bit of snippet. I know he was hurt last year at Missouri, but he was a really good player on really good teams at Colorado State. So we need to lean into that experience, and he needs to pour that into our younger guys.
Jocko?
Coach Mike Klesman said, if there's not a brawl in practice every day, there's damn near one, his words. He said that, it's very spirited.
Right.
These guys are going to make it to November 4th against Holy Cross. I mean, they seem very fired up to get this season started. They can't wait. That has to make you very happy.
Yeah, like I mentioned from the outset, they're extremely competitive, and I think that we've seen that every day, whether it's been one-on-one drills, small group drills, or we get into more 5-on-5. It's as much as I mix and match teams and try to move guys around to see who impacts winning. The competitiveness across the board has stayed really, really high. So he's right. I mean, that's what you would expect. There's a line you just don't cross, but they've walked right up to the line. And but then when it's all done, man, they're united. I think that's the neat part to watch about this group, is that they don't become individualistic, and they check it at the door when they come in terms of their individual motives, and really are trying to do what's best for our team.
Ron?
Coach, with Nolan seeing some more time at the 4, it seems like there's an open competition for Steve's backup at the 5. What have you kind of seen from some of those guys so far? And I know it's a month away, but what have you seen early on so far?
Yeah, they're all different. Whether I use Nolan behind Steve at the 5, if I use Ricardo there, or we've even been able to play a little smaller too. And obviously Gilmore's played there in the past. Hodges is still, competing every day. But, Greppy is the size is evident, and his physicality is evident. I think for him, and he's mentioned it, it's a little faster pace here in the U.S. than it is in Europe in terms of it's more strategic in terms of how they play, a little more calculated. And we're finding a blend of that. You're seeing that seep into college basketball, kind of the blend of how they play in Europe. A lot of it's offensive strategy driven with the ball screens and open floor, but the speed of the game has been a little bit of an adjustment to him. I think, and how to be physical without fouling out in 4 minutes is another adjustment for him. You know, as much as Steve, pushes and shoves and is physical with him, he tries to do the same back, but it's not quite as experienced and as savvy as what older guys are. So that's a learning curve he's going to have to grow through. There's no other way to get there other than he's going to have to figure some things out, and there's going to be mistakes along the way. But the other two guys, I mean, we can play smaller. We've tinkered with Tanjay at the 4 a little bit too, and it makes us really hard to guard just because of his versatility and shooting and ball handling ability. And but I like to have options, and I have a lot of different options. They're all a little different in terms of size and versatility and what they do, but I think that's one area we'll continue to watch and help develop, because we're not there yet in terms of I'm not convinced who's going to be the backup and when. It may be a little bit by committee early.
Mark?
As far as Steve goes, what does his, what does his leadership style look like? How does he go about it? And as far as his game goes, what might be the next step? What might be an evolution or an additional piece that we might see this year?
Yeah, I think leadership-wise, Steve is more by example than he is by words. He's always been a man of few words, but we're trying to continue to get that out of him, and I think he's become more vocal. I think the biggest thing for him is he's asked to demand the ball, and he needs to have it, if not every time down the floor. We can't go 2 or 3 possessions in a row without him not having some type of touch in the paint. And I think the next step for him is just to make that over a 28, 32-minute segment of a game. He has to become dominant and consistently dominant, because we've seen it in flashes, and I've seen it in practice where he's unguardable, but it's a matter of his mindset of wanting that all the time, and that's part on his teammates too. Like we'll force feed him the ball at times, and just because he needs to have touches because he makes so many good things happen, and he needs to be consistently aggressive and consistently dominant, regardless of who we play, regardless of what day we're in of practice. I think his next step, his final step here in this last year, is to make himself into consistently an all-league big guy like I think he can be.
Carly?
Hi, Coach.
Hey, Carly.
How competitive is the point guard position, and how are you evaluating those 3 guys heading into the season?
Yeah, I think it's been, Kamari McGee has been steady, just really consistent, really vocal, done an awesome job of leading. He's understood what he can do, and he's understood what he can't do, which I would say in the previous 2 years, he didn't have a clear grasp of that, clear vision. He knows when to step on the gas. He knows when not to. He avoids trouble a lot, which was sometimes a fault of his in the past. He's done a really good job of, like I said, just the command he's taken, the voice he's had. He's obviously a menace defensively. I think Cam Hunter, really, the last 2 days of practice have been some of his best 2. And he is different. It's a little bit like having 2 different styles of running backs, with how quick Cam McGee plays. And then Hunter is more of a bruising force and plays way more physical because he can and because he has to. But I think his understanding of what his role is going to be is becoming clear for him, and he's becoming more and more comfortable, a lot like I mentioned with Tanjay and Amos. And through the summer, just every week they took another step. And then Freitag, again, probably there's nobody had a better week of practice than him over the last week. And I think the game is, I don't want to say slowed down, but mentally he's slowed down a little bit. He's still playing as aggressive, but I think his decision-making, and he has some things, physically that you can't teach, does some things physically with his burst, and he brings electricity to us on both ends of the floor. Now that electricity also gets him in trouble at times, but the consistency that he is starting to develop is good to see. He's definitely trending in the right direction, and it's still obviously not even mid-October yet, but I like where he's going. I think it makes that room or group of point guards potentially, and then you throw Blackwell in with it, who I think is ultra comfortable with the ball in his hands. He may have the ball in his hands and really not be the point guard per se if you did it by number on the floor, but he's just in such command with the ball and so confident with it. He did some things Saturday in our little scrimmage that you like to see from a guy's jump from year one to year two. It's a very mature approach to the game, and said all along, he came back in June. I felt he knew he was the best player on the floor. He wanted to be the best player on the floor. He wanted to dominate. I don't like to compare to the past, but Johnny came back with that same type of mentality as a sophomore. They're completely different players, different physically how they play, but the mindset and approach to the game, the maturity level and the willingness and the want to be the best is pretty evident. And I saw that with Johnny, and I see that with John as well. And I'm not saying he's going to be a lottery pick or anything. Don't put words in my mouth. It's just a competitive mindset to be the best on the floor, and that was a difference maker for Johnny, and I think it'll be a difference maker for John as well.
Donnie on the left, on your left.
Yep.
So last season, obviously, the first half went a lot better than the second half. Does that change your approach at all, like for this coming year, to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, I can do a lot of things. I can't control injuries. You try to as you get deeper in the season, but I think that the McGee and Blackwell injury, there's no doubt there was a common denominator that put us off the tracks that we couldn't quite get back to. It was those two things. Nothing else changed. And so you look back through it and you watch games and what was different. I think those two things, and you can look at stat sheets and say, well, McGee didn't average a lot of points for you, but it was a rotation and a comfort level we were in, and a little burst of energy that he gave us. And obviously John was, I was the one that made the mistakes by not playing him more. I played him 22, 24 minutes a game. Probably could have been a 28 to 30 guy, but obviously I had two older guys there in front of him, and then when he got hurt too, when he came back, he was never quite the same. So, like I said, you can't crystal ball, the health of people. You try to do the best you can to make sure fatigue is monitored. But I think that's part of how we put this group together, the intentionality, like I mentioned before, with the roster of trying to be too deep at every position. And it raises the level of competition. Not that we're going to play 10 guys. I don't know yet how many I'll play. It's really hard to play 10, but I think the competitiveness of the group has helped raise the bar and has made everybody better.
Michael?
Has there been a push by the coaching staff, and have you seen players in the roster kind of push John to kind of believe a little bit more that he's a go-to guy and that he's somebody that can deliver in big moments?
Yeah, I think the players, I don't know what they talk about in the locker room. I know what I've told him. And I think what I tell him is secondary to what he believes. The best players we've had here, you don't have to tell them. They have an inner confidence about them that they know. I think you try to fabricate confidence, it's not going to last. That comes from the work he's put in. I know he's spent some time with former Detroit native that played at Toledo, Ryan with the Bucks. Ryan Taylor, is that right? Who's covering the Bucks in here? They have Ryan Taylor? Who?
I just went to media day, that he wasn't there. So.
Nick's checking the roster for me. He played at Toledo. Man, you're asking me all the questions. I fire one at you and nobody has an answer.
Ryan Rollins.
Ryan Rollins, there you go. Not Ryan Taylor. So we spent some time with him. I think anytime guys spend time, whether it's on the court or just talking to players that have reached a really high level, it helps with their mindset. And I think for him, like I said, just the knowing that he's put in the time, put in the work, worked on that, and then you got to go do it. So as much as the coaches breathe confidence into him and teammates do it, it's still an inner belief that you can be, the best on the floor night in and night out. And I think he has the right mindset. I'd still like to see him be more vocal and more aggressive in terms of his vocabulary and just command of teammates, but you can tell he's really competitive. Just again, I go back to Saturday and he made some plays, and there's part of the competition. There's a little chatter going back and forth with the groups, so he holds his own. He can back it up too with how he talks.
Kendrick?